Evening, everybody, and welcome to our Tuesday Talk series here at the Win City Investors Club, the unadulterated, no bullshit investor talk on everything real estate investing, where we pick a expert's brain on what they do best. Today, I have the pleasure and the honor of having on board here Luc Boiron, who is, well, I've labeled him the number one wholesaler in Canada. So I don't know if anybody else can challenge me on that. Please go ahead. I think Luc does a good job. He does a lot of volume. We'll hear all about it. But before that, welcome to the show, Luc.
Thanks for having me, Savio. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. Did I pronounce your name right? Boiron? Is that the...
Boiron. My brother says Boiron. I say Boiron.
Okay.
Fine either way.
All right. Cool. Welcome. Yes. So as I said, I consider you to be the number one wholesaler in Canada. For those of us who don't know you, or if you haven't heard about Luc and what he does at Bliss Realty, I don't know if you guys are living under a rock or you're actually just starting off your investing game. But Luc, why don't you run us through your company and what you do?
Sure. I've been investing in real estate since 2007. I've been at it full-time since 2016, really flipping houses full-time, and then started wholesaling more and more because buying off market was my specialty. And now we've grown to a much larger team. We're buying 10 to 15 houses a month right now in kind of the greater Toronto, Hamilton area, Ottawa, and now we're in Montreal as well. We have 16 people on our team, and we're just buying properties, and we're trying to sell them to investors at a discount so that it's a win-win situation for homeowners who are looking to get out of rundown houses, don't have money for repairs, that kind of thing, and home buyers, real estate investors who are looking to get into property for 10%, 5 to 25% less than market value.
Nice. I love it. Listen, when I started in real estate investing, which is not that long ago, I have to admit, definitely not 2007 when you started, but even as far back as 3 to 5 years ago, when I started in real estate investing in Canada, obviously when you start going for courses and things like this, you start off with a very Americanized programs, right? At least that's what was available to us at that time. And, they talk a lot about wholesaling. And then every time I said this word wholesaling to anybody in Canada that I had this idea I wanted to do something like this, and I was treated like, oh my God, this guy's a criminal, right? He's doing something wrong. It's illegal. It's not possible to do here in Canada. What are you talking about, right? And I was always given this pushback. Fast forward a couple of years later, I know there's a few people who are actually doing this. What is, in your mind, Luc, the stigma people have with wholesaling in Canada, and what's wrong with that? Can you bust some myths over here?
Yeah, well, there's two. The first is that we take advantage of people, because people in Canada can't imagine that anybody wants to sell their house for less than what they could get for it on the MLS. But what they don't understand is it's not everybody wants to clean the house, paint it, stage it, show it in the best light possible to prepare it. Honestly, a lot of the houses we look at, if people would just rent a storage unit and put all of their stuff in there, they would probably be able to sell it for a lot more. But it looks terrible because it's so full of stuff. That's just one example. Not to mention, we can offer a lot of things that people can't get on the MLS. Like, you have to realize a lot of sellers, they're living paycheck to paycheck, month to month. They don't have the money to pay for a storage locker, to rent something else to stay at while selling it, to try to maximize what they're getting, to pay for repairs, or to put a down payment, the money as a deposit to purchase another property. They don't have the cash available for this. So they're actually limited in some way. Some of them, they don't have first and last month's rent to go rent somewhere, right? So we're able to offer other solutions. We're able to offer more certainty of the sale, and also just a much quicker process with a lot fewer showings. So there's this whole segment of the population. It's a very small percentage. It might be 1% of the population that will say, I know I'm getting less than market value for this, but I'm okay with that because it's worth what Luc and his team are offering is worth it to me. Whether that's I have 12 cats, and if I list it on the MLS and there's an open house, my cats might get out and get hit by a car. That might be worth to me to sell it to less for a little less money to Luc and his team. Or it might be, I'm embarrassed of how I live, and I don't want my neighbors to find out if I list it on the market and they walk through and they see that I'm a hoarder and there's cockroaches, all of these things, right? So really rundown properties, some people are really embarrassed that they live like that, or that the family member they inherited from lived like that. So instead of fixing it themselves, they need a fresh start, they need a clean start. And so I think that's not true what people think, that we just take advantage of people. All of our sellers have voluntarily signed the agreements. And for the most part, people are really happy to have sold to us. We've solved a lot of problems for people. So that's number one. The other side of it was, like you said, when I started saying I was a wholesaler, hey, Savio, join my buyers list. You're going to get an opportunity to save $10 to $50,000+ on the next purchase, $10 to $100,000 on the next property purchase. We might find one in the area you're buying already. Why don't you join our list? But what I get from people was, oh yeah, I've heard of wholesalers. I've joined some lists before, and all I've gotten is basically MLS value properties, and I've seen this all the time too. A new wholesaler, all they understand is people want to buy properties. All I have to do is go buy it. So they go buy something on the MLS. It's listed at $300,000. They buy it for $295, and then they try to wholesale it at $305. And those numbers, they're asking more than the MLS. And pretty much all the investors would say, well, if you just bought it off the MLS and didn't get some huge discount, I could have just done that. Why would I buy it from you? That's the typical response. So a lot of people have seen those types of wholesalers where they're trying, but the deals they have they're not actually discounted. They're not providing good value for what they're offering. And so early on, I had people who didn't want to join our list because they thought we'd just be one of the other people who weren't providing good deals, and it'd be a waste of their time clogging up their inbox. I would say we've helped change that mindset where now people are looking for wholesalers and they want to get those good deals. I think we've been able to show people, hey, there actually are good deals out there. And, if you're on our buyers list, you can find them.
Yeah, no, awesome. I have one comment and one question over here. Just going back to what you said about, the fact that there are people out there who don't want to put their properties on the MLS. I think a lot of people who have this negative connotation about wholesalers and the wholesaling industry, if you will, is that no sane person would not want to put their property on the MLS, right? Well, Luc and his team have proven that theory completely wrong. If you're buying up 15 to 20 houses a month, that tells me that there are 15 or 20 people out there who don't want to go on the MLS. And these people are not held at gunpoint with Luc and his team. They are voluntarily signing these contracts, right? For whatever reasons, and Luc has mentioned before. So comment on that. The other question I had is that another thing is that, is it legal? Because that's, I get this comment all the time. Oh, it's illegal. You can't do it in Canada. You can't wholesale. You can't be a middleman between a seller and a buyer and take a commission for that, right? And you want to add something on that, Luc?
Yeah, absolutely. Being a middleman and taking a commission without having your broker's license is definitely not allowed. You would be, in my understanding, in violation of the Real Estate and Business Brokers Act. One of the differences is we don't act as a middleman for anyone. We buy the property. We have the rights to buy the property, right? So we put the property under contract, and then we're selling our rights to somebody else. We're never representing either the seller or the buyer. We're always acting for our own interests and representing ourselves. And that's, in that way, we're not acting as a middleman. We're only representing our own interest. I'm allowed to buy privately. I'm allowed to sell privately. That's what we do.
Perfect. I love it, because thanks for the clarification. I think that's important. Legally, you're not the middleman. You're not representing the buyer or the seller. You're representing your own interest. So basically, you are in essence purchasing this home, right? And then you're selling it off to somebody else. What happens if that transactions don't actually close? So let's say you purchase a home, but your buyer doesn't buy this home. Are you supposed to close it yourself, or the contract becomes null and void? Can you talk about that?
So two parts. One is when we do the initial purchase with the seller, we may buy it conditionally. Sometimes we'll straight up directly buy it firm, but we may purchase it conditionally. And during that time, we'll see, do we have buyers interested? What would renovations maybe cost us? That kind of thing. If we can assign it to another investor, then at that point we can waive our condition. But sometimes we can't find a buyer for it, but we really like the property for ourselves. So we'll close on it ourselves. And that might be, sometimes what we do is we call it the wholetail, which is the wholesale to the resale market. We'll close on it, we'll actually own it on title, and then we'll clean it up, maybe paint it, maybe just clean, and then we'll list it on the MLS. So just a light cleanup and relist. Now, on the other side, where you're saying is if we've already assigned this contract to a buyer, waived our condition, and then the buyer doesn't close, at that point, the buyer stepped in and filled our shoes. They're the buyer of the initial agreement. So if they don't close, they've now breached the agreement with us, the assignment agreement that says they're going to close and pay us our assignment fee. And they've breached their agreement with the agreement they've stepped into with the seller. So they really breached two agreements by not closing. Mm-hmm. So they're liable to the seller, and they could technically be liable to us as well for our assignment fee if they are the reason it doesn't close. Of course, our contracts are always, if the seller is the reason it doesn't close, then you get your deposit back. We can't always control every seller. A small percentage of deals will fall through where something comes up, the seller, not on title, owes more than we realized, or something like that. Maybe there's writs against their name, and they can't transfer the property without those being paid off. But those writs from lawsuits or debts have added up to more than we're purchasing it, and then the deal can't go through, right? So that kind of situation where, unfortunately, a small percentage of deals fall out. In that case, the buyer gets their deposit back. It's, the assignee gets their deposit back. It's not their fault if the seller can't close.
Got it. I love it. We're diving deep into the transactions. I love that, and we're going to get into that more, guys. For those of you who are listening on Facebook Live over here in our Facebook group, if you have any questions, drop it in the comments. Please drop it in the comments so we can ask Luc. He's live here. If you have any questions about wholesaling, how to do it. What you should be aware of, what you shouldn't be aware of, so on and so forth. Ask in the comments so we can ask Luc while we got him over here with us. Okay, Luc, I want to hear. Let's rewind a little bit. Let's go to the Luc Boiron origin story. Did he start off as a wholesaler right off the bat? Did you do something different? What made you get to where you are today and be highly successful? Sure. Give us some baby Luc stories.
Yeah. Well, my dad had a big impact on me. He was a commercial real estate agent and had some investments himself. No wholesaling, but I did kind of observe a little bit how on the commercial side they're much more creative with their agreements, right? Instead of having a home inspection clause and a financing clause, they'd have a 30 or 60-day due diligence condition. And there was all these different ways that you could structure deals where you could have, I saw deals with a $50,000 refundable deposit for a year on, potentially development land, where you can do all your due diligence and start asking for applications. And then if it doesn't go the way you want, you can actually back out of the deal and get your deposit back. So I saw these kind of creative ways that deals were structured from my father as a real estate agent. He actually wrote a book on commercial real estate investing. It's called Commercial Real Estate Investing in Canada. So I learned a lot from him. And then when I was in my first year of undergrad, I came back from, I was teaching English 2 years in China before that. I came back, had saved up some money, and I used that to buy my first rental property at Jane and Finch in Toronto. And I turned a 3-bedroom bungalow into a 10-bedroom rooming house. Also rented out the garage for storage.
Nice location for those people who know Toronto.
Yeah, quite the location. I made a lot of mistakes. I learned a lot from it. I dealt with some interesting people. I wouldn't trade it for the world. There was a bit of appreciation there, which was good as well. So I held that for 4 years, sold that in 2011, 2012, bought another place with a friend. And during this time, I did my undergrad in business at Schulich, and then I did a joint law degree and MBA at Osgoode Hall and Schulich School of Business. So I graduated law school in 2015. I got called to the bar in 2016. And then at the end of 2016, I decided to follow my passion. And I was kind of thinking, instead of buying rental properties, how can I get into this full time? And that was flipping houses. So end of 2016, I started flipping houses. And what I realized was I had higher maybe expenses than some other people who were flipping houses. So because I was trying to do multiple projects at once, my renovation costs were a little higher because I couldn't manage it as closely. And my financing was private financing. So I had those expensive fees and the points up front and a high interest rate on that. And I was splitting my profits with equity partners who would put the down payment and the renovation money in.
Yeah.
So I had all of these extra fees on it. A property might have been $30,000 in financing costs. And then what happened was I had 7 renovations going on at the same time. And I just couldn't handle the volume. It was just me. At one point I had an assistant for a couple of months that didn't work out. It was just me managing all these renovations. And I got a lead on another property and I almost didn't go because I was like, I can't handle buying more properties. I can't handle the volume right now. But it seemed like a good deal. My wife Jess pushed me to go see it. I did. I ended up buying it and called someone the same evening who was interested in it. And I sold it to them the next week. So I signed the contract. And that was my first wholesale deal. It was a really good deal. I knew I could make money selling it. I could have flipped it. But I actually looked at it and said, between splitting the profit on the flip, all these extra costs I'm going to have, the person who bought it from me can make more money than I was going to after paying me a fee. Because the guy who bought it from me was a real estate agent, so he didn't have to pay commissions on the sale to his agent. He would have had to pay the buyer's agent. He was buying it based on a line of credit on his primary residence. So his interest rate was probably 3.5% or something like that. And no points, no fees, just roll in and out. And him and his father were much more closely involved in managing the renovation. They were able to keep costs way lower down. They hired some lower cost laborers who need more supervision but can get the job done for less money. And they worked with them and they kept the cost way lower. So they ended up making a lot of money on this deal, more than I would have made flipping it. And they were able to pay me because their costs were so much lower. So I looked at that and I said, I kept flipping for a bit after that, but I did a few assignments through there. And then I really started shifting to, why am I managing all these contractors? This isn't my strength. I'm not that good. Like I'm too busy. I'm not the one reminding the plumber that they show up. Because some of these contractors, you have to hold their hand and make sure they're going to show up, especially when you're trying to save money. There's a balance, right? You don't, like that great contractor who always shows up, does perfect work, you never need to check on them. They cost an arm and a leg. You don't want the guy who works for a pack of smokes and a 6-pack of beer, but you want to find somewhere in the middle. And sometimes there's a little bit of that, like pushing them to reminding them and things. So I was so busy, I wasn't doing that. Things weren't happening quickly. I was carrying properties longer than I wanted. And I ended up just really shifting. So the majority of my business now, we don't close on them, we sign them. I close on it properties every once in a while, and they're mostly just light cleanup.
Yeah. There's so many questions I have right now, but one of the things that sticks out for me, I think, that makes you a successful wholesaler is that you were a flipper first. So from running the numbers, when you acquire a property, or even before you acquire a property, how much, if you want to flip this property, how much you should be making on that, right? So I guess in the sales process of acquiring the property and then trying to assign it to somebody else, you already know the numbers. I think, and that's a critical fact. Going back, to what you mentioned about the newbie wholesalers, and they're asking MLS prices or very close to MLS prices. How is the flipper or the investor going to make any money? That doesn't make sense anymore. And I think that's where you had this big advantage of being a flipper or getting some experience first, so you could see it with different eyes, right? And I think that's super, super important. So for those of you who are just starting wholesaling and you feel that you're not getting the deals, or your buyers are not buying your deals, maybe you need to go back and run the numbers. Maybe you need to take one of those projects yourself and actually go through the process of flipping it, see the pains that a flipper takes, in a project, and then you'll have better eyesight for your next possible projects, right? So I love that, Luc. And then my question to you then is that, okay, so you kind of shifted from being a flipper. You understood that there's more money to be made, or less hassles to be had in wholesaling. But surely you were not doing 15, 20 wholesale deals a month right off the bat. Like, how did you get to that point? What did you focus on? Did you got some God inspiration? God came down to you one night and spoke to you, or you went for some kind of coaching? You had a mentor. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah. So I really started building a little bit of my team, an assistant and an acquisition manager, working on my processes and working on our marketing. And we started doing relatively consistent wholesale deals. And it was at that point I ended up going to an event in the States. So I hadn't done any of the coaching. I was really skeptical of these guru programs, and they charge you $20,000 to $40,000, and the coaches aren't really doing real estate themselves most of the time. So I ended up going down to an event like a conference, which was really exciting because I was surrounded by, all these people who were doing so many flips and all of this. And I wasn't used to being surrounded by people who were doing, more than 20 deals a year is, very, very rare here in Canada. So I was surrounded by these people and it was super exciting. So I had figured out how to wholesale, how to market, how to get deals, how to get them under contract, how to assign them. What I hadn't figured out was how to grow a team, and ended up joining a mastermind group down there. And I helped use that group to help structure how what my business would look like. And so we've grown from, at the time I had, I guess 4 employees, including myself, and now we're at 16. And so that was really the progression. It was figuring out how to wholesale, but then once I knew how to wholesale, how do I scale that up into a real business, sizable business?
Got it. Yeah, I mean, you say what I preach all the time, guys. Like, when it comes to coaching and spending money on mentorship and surrounding yourself with the right kind of people, it's I can't give you you can't put a number on that, right? There's no monetary number on that, because here's the thing, like most of us who are investors, you're probably the only one in your family who's doing it. You're probably the only one in your family that even thought about doing this as a business versus the traditional go to school, get a good job, or even maybe the family business, like owning a restaurant or whatever, right? So you got to find it very, very hard to talk to somebody like-minded, right? And that's why it's important that you guys are in the right community, in the right environment to put your ideas to others, bounce ideas off each other and so on and so forth. And sometimes that costs money. I speak for Luc. I'm sure that mastermind that you attended, Luc, at the point that you were part of that mastermind, probably the others in the group were at a much higher level than you were, right? And that's one of the reasons why you lifted up your game as well. At least I hope so.
Yeah, I mean, when I joined the highest level they had. Actually, they don't fully have that level anymore. Joined the highest level they had, but I was probably the lowest level person in that level. And it was $40,000 US for 1 year of the program. They've now lowered that. I think my renewal was $20,000. So more reasonable now. But yeah, I had to pay for it, but at the same time, once you're doing a certain volume on your own, a few tweaks when you're doing 100+ deals a year, if you make an extra $1,000 on each deal, that's an extra $100,000 in a year. So
I love it.
Little tweaks like that can make a difference, and it might be $1,000 cost saving on each deal, or it might be just $1,000 more profit. And I mean, in real estate, you're talking houses of hundreds of thousands of dollars. There's room to squeeze out an extra $500, $2,000, $5,000 out of deals consistently.
No, I love it. The payback is tremendous. Is absolutely, it's a no-brainer. The numbers look big at the start. I mean, I was one of those guys who paid a lot of money for courses as well, and people were telling me I was crazy, right? But my thinking was exactly the same. If I used what I learned in that course in my business, I'm going to get that payback anyways, as soon as possible, and then I can grow better and faster, and so on and so forth. Okay, cool. Let's take a couple of questions, Luc, if you allow. I'm just going to go to my Facebook group over here. Let's see. Oh, there's quite a few questions here. Okay, cool. So I'm just going to jump right in it. So Cody asks, would you consider making offers to sellers in person, verbally, or email on paper so they can see it?
Well, they can also see it when you're in person verbally, right? Because you could print off the offer with you and write in a price. In terms of, especially with COVID right now, some people may be more comfortable getting an offer remotely. There's obviously huge benefits to it. You're not driving out to see properties. You're not sitting in traffic. You could give a lot more offers on the phone and send them by email than you could, driving to each property. But at the same time, you may be able to build more rapport with the person in person and convince them to maybe adjust the price or agree to sell to you and overcome their objection when you can really, look at them in the eyes and understand the body language more than just the words that are coming out of their mouth. It's a little bit harder on the phone to come across that way. So we've bought properties over the phone for sure, but I would, wherever possible, you think it's a promising lead or you think they need a little work, I would meet with them in person, but it may be easier to get more offers out if you're just doing it over the phone and by email, you may be able to get more of them out. So that could be valuable as well.
Nice, perfect. I hope that answered your question, Cody. Thomas Lorini asks, when does the seller know your rights have been assigned? Good question. I like it.
Sorry, say that again.
Care? When does the seller know that your rights as the wholesaler has been assigned now to the new buyer?
Yeah, so we don't typically tell the seller how much we're making on it. They don't typically see that. What we do is once we've purchased the property, once we've signed the assignment agreement, our lawyer will tell the seller's lawyer that it's been assigned and who the new buyer is. We just call it a notice of assignment. So we just notify the seller's lawyer that there's a new buyer and who they are.
So just to follow up on that, and this is from me, Luc, do they care? Do the sellers care?
I mean, I think part of it is if they don't know it's coming at all, it'll shock them. Really, this started off when I was flipping because I would be using private money lenders and equity partners. So it was very common that one of them would want to be on the property, right? That we would do a name change, that we'd do an assignment,
right.
That they would be the one, I might buy it under Luc Boiron or Bliss Realty. I might put it under contract that way, but then I go to Savio and I say, Savio, I have this property under contract. Do you want to partner on it? And you say, sure, but I'm putting the equity in. I want my name on the contract. Let's do it that way. And so I would change the name to Savio. Well, that was essentially how we started. And so that's kind of the premise that we go with sellers too. It's, one of our partners might want to be on title, one of our lenders. We start with that. We don't typically start with, hey, we're going to try to sell this contract and make money.
Got it. Yeah. And at the end of the day, if you agree the price with them, they shouldn't really care, right? I mean, they're getting what they want out of it. And whether it's Luc or Savio or John or Thomas who's buying it at the end of the day, they're getting the money. So
for sure. And if you approach it that way, when I was flipping, nobody ever cared. But some people are sensitive. I might be able to sell it to Savio for $10,000 more, but then the sellers might think, well, I could have just sold it to Savio. The seller doesn't know Savio. Right? Yeah. So they might emotionally feel like they could have gotten that 10,000 more. So we find it just more likely for the transaction to go through if we don't tell them what we're making. Some other people's strategy is fully just be completely upfront with that. We're going to try to assign this to another investor and here's how much we're making. So that's also an option. We've done it our way. We find it kind of maximizes the chances that the deal's going to go through.
Let's put the question the other way. When does the buyer know the wholesale fee in the transaction?
Yeah, right before signing. So we would basically negotiate with the buyer on the total price of the property because we're essentially selling the property in a way, right? So we say, we agree to $200,000 and they don't know whether we got it for $199,000 or whether we got it for $99,000, right? That'd be nice, but they don't know what that number is. And when it's a really large number, we may let them know, hey, you may need to come up with more cash because often lenders will only lend on the initial purchase amount. So in that case, whether it's $199 or $99, the difference up to $200, they'd have to come up with often in cash, depending on the lender they're working with. So we might let them know what that is, preempt it, but we don't, they see the contract, so they verbally agree to pay $200,000. And if they see the contract and the seller sold it to us for $1 and we're making $200,000, if they're upset by that, then my question is always, was the initial, were you not okay with $200,000? Well, no, I was. So what's the problem? And I'm making too much money. That might, it's usually not a problem for us, but it's occasionally happen where people feel like we got really lucky. We got a really good deal on a property and then our buyer feels we shouldn't make that much. But yes, they find out right after we agree on the final purchase price.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, at that point, they can suck eggs if all I care. I mean, if the numbers worked verbally, right, for them as a buyer, it doesn't matter what the wholesaler made or whoever's assigning the contract made, because they've taken that into consideration, right? But I do agree if it comes to a lender and getting a lender to agree on the total price, that could be an issue for sure. Okay, cool. Let's take some more questions over here. Cody's got a few. I think, Cody, we're going to come back to those because we've not addressed the topic yet, but it's about marketing. We'll come back to that. Dan has a great question over here. Who's your most valuable employee and why? Be careful with the answer now.
That's tough. I have some really great employees. I've been lucky. We've really gotten better at hiring rock stars. And I would say I've been lucky with Parker, who's on my team. He's my acquisition rep in the GTA. He's been with me. He's my first acquisition rep in the GTA. He's very good at buying houses. He's been with me for a couple of years now. I'd say he's one of the best home buyers in Canada. I mean, he's bought probably close to 100 houses himself. So he's very good. So acquisition rep, when they're good, he's great. I would say that the person who really grew the business the most and has made and is ongoing making the biggest difference is my COO, Corey, Chief Operating Officer. I brought him in as a sales manager and moved him into the COO role. He's really blown up my business, in part because he has a ton of experience hiring and training people. So I brought in someone with that experience and sales experience, and he's been able to help with that part of it. He helps interview people. He really helps grow the team a lot. And with his personality is much more outgoing and friendly, and it lends itself well to keeping the team happy and giving a really good culture and work environment so that people are happy working with us. So one of the big reasons I'm saying he may be kind of my most important hire is that he's essentially going to be my point person in the company. If I'm less involved in the day-to-day, he'll be relaying everything, the important things back to me. So he's the person that if I was on a deserted island and had, cell signal for 1 hour a week, I could spend that 1 hour a week and he could upload everything that I need to know, what our numbers are, what issues we're having. He could upload that to me. So he's really that person who's taking over most of the day-to-day operations when I'm more of a come in to solve bigger problems or other issues that we're seeing.
I don't know if you guys missed it, when Luc was talking earlier, he said one of the things that basically brought him to where he is today is setting up systems, right? Here he's talking about having 16 employees, a CEO, acquisition managers, sort of things like that. It's not just being good at what you know. It's if you want to scale up your business, you have to build a company, right? And this is exactly what it is. And it's impressive Luc talks about that, because nobody would think that a wholesaling guy has a company that big and is running it like a business. And here it is, right? I mean, if you want to get to the levels that Luc is, there's a lot more going on behind the scenes that you guys know. Luc, talk about the training. This sort of stuff, when you acquire managers, is that training in-house? Is that something that you do yourself from your experience? Or, the value of coaching and mentorship and getting people in a room with experts and so on and so forth. Do you pay for your employees to get trained externally, or you do that all in-house? Can you share that?
Yeah. So some of the training, we train in-house. Some of the training we have has partially come from the mastermind group we're in. We've kind of picked through things that we want to bring to them. Part of the problem is that the mastermind group is US based. So there's certain things that don't apply. There's certain things that do. So we have videos from our mastermind group that certain ones that all employees watch and certain ones that people in specific roles watch. When I hired Parker, for example, for training, it was months and months of him just shadowing me. I was going to appointments with sellers. I didn't really know how to train someone. So it's kind of like, I'm just going to do my thing and you do it with me and you can learn from that. So just shadow me, follow me, you can learn from that. Now it's much more, for one, we have 3 acquisition reps, right? So if we hire a new acquisition rep, the other people will help train them as well. And then Corey, as our COO, will also help train. So we have video training. And what we do, for example, we're on a Zoom call right now. What we'll do is, if I want to train on, let's say, how to fill out this contract, I might do it, Corey might do it. I might just ask one of our acquisition reps who always does it, hey, open Zoom, start a new meeting with yourself, share screen, and click record, and then fill out the contract in the computer and explain what you're doing as you're doing it. Now, instead of me showing a new acquisition rep how to fill out the contract, they have this video explaining it, and they can watch it over and over, so they see, little things that they missed. They can, they might watch it once, catch the general idea, and then they get a property under contract where they're filling out their first contract. They can rewatch it and see, what did I miss, or what happened? What do I put in this part? So they can rewatch that. So instead of each time explaining it, we try to do a training video on things that we're going to be repeating, and we can just share it with them once, and they'll have that forever.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Again, it's all about systems, right? And processes, and recording that so people can just repeat it over and over again without spending the time to do that. So I love it. So that's a great point, guys. If you're starting up or if you're expanding your business, that's a way to do it, right? Rather than you spending your time training each individual, record that, let them watch the videos. Perfect. Guys who are dropping comments in the Facebook Live group here, for some technical reason, I can see only 5 comments at a time, and unfortunately, I can't get the rest of them. So I apologize if we haven't answered your question. What I will do is basically after this call, Luc and I will go over that, and then we try and get, or I'll ask Luc to answer those questions in our Facebook group, if you allow us. Okay, let's take another one over here. Yeah, let's get into it. Marketing, Luc. So the amount of deals that you do, obviously, forget about selling the deals to your sellers. You got to find these deals in the first place, right? So give us your secrets. What's your marketing secrets here? Well, tell us what we should be doing.
The first thing is, for the team the size we have, and to keep everyone busy on our team and everyone hired, we basically do what you would say. We have multiple lines in different ponds, right? We're not fishing from one pond only. And there's a few different reasons for that. One was I watched people in the US who have one marketing channel for everything, where they were doing great at a certain point, and then that marketing channel just died for no reason for 6 months. They're spending money on it. They don't know what to do. They just try to pump more money into it, and they're having problems with it. So I think most people know here, we can't buy lists in Canada. We can't buy targeted lists. So obviously that puts it at a huge disadvantage compared to the States. When I was starting out, I was doing a little bit of organic, like SEO type stuff, and I was doing PPC. That's really what I started with. Pay-per-click or Google AdWords was really what I was.
Sorry, can I cut you off there? When you say SEO, what are you talking about? We'll buy your home for cash, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, we have several websites up.
Okay.
And on our website, it's, there's a few different companies like Lead Propeller and Investor Carrot who have websites specifically geared towards real estate investors looking to buy privately. And some of the background language, I've learned since they're not amazing, but they're good enough. Some of the background language built into the websites is supposed to help it rank higher organically. So we had a little bit of that, and I was kind of, whenever I could, trying to add to the parts that would help it rank higher, adding keywords and things like that. That was the SEO part, and I've gotten a few deals from that. Definitely nothing that, nothing to write home about. Some good deals, but not very consistent. Where I really started wholesaling and buying privately consistently was from Google AdWords. It was, that's what, the ad you see on the first page of Google, sponsored ad or paid ad, whatever it says, but it might say something like "we buy houses." So if someone types in "sell my house fast," Windsor, you'd want to be, great if you could be organically on the first page because you're not paying per click. But if you can't be organically on the first page, you want to be one of those top 3 spots.
Yep.
Where it says, you type in "sell my house fast Windsor" and it says "I buy houses fast," "I buy houses fast in Windsor." And
Yep.
Number to contact me, and a website. So that's what I started with when I was scaling up. We still do that. It's funny, last year, this time, we were doing amazing on PPC. This year, we've suffered a bit. We haven't been doing very well the last few months on pre-COVID as well. Basically all of 2020. We've gotten a few deals, but not much from it. I don't think it's dead. I just think it comes in cycles, and there may be some tweaking we need to do, and we are working on it within it. So that's one of the reasons I say don't count on any individual channel. In addition to that, we'll mail targeted neighborhoods that we want to buy in areas with more rundown houses. We can send postcards to the entire neighborhood, saying we want to buy your house, we're investors. We'll also do what's called driving for dollars in targeted areas we want to do. So that's, driving around, seeing houses that look vacant, boarded up, run down, long grass, snow not cleared, whatever time of the year you're looking at, garbage not put out on garbage day, those kinds of things. Make a list of all of those, and then what we've done is we go to City Hall, pull all of the mailing addresses for the owners of those properties, and we will send them personalized letters because you get the name and the mailing address from the tax rolls of the city. So that'll be a more targeted way. It's very time consuming. And of course, mailing in Canada is not cheap either when you're mailing targeted pieces, right? If you're putting a stamp on each piece, it gets expensive. When you're mailing 500 plus at a time, you can do a printed stamp, but then your open rate's lower because it looks like ad mail. So yeah, what else? We're doing Facebook ads right now. Facebook's a very tricky one to do. We've gotten deals from it, but it's not a consistent thing either. Very, very finicky. It always changes on Facebook. So yeah.
So those
I'm sure there's other ones, but bandit signs are one that people do regularly. We don't do a lot. We have a little bit of it going in Ottawa. We don't do much, but some people have a lot of success from it. What I find is, my understanding is you have success right at the beginning when you first do it, but very quickly people in the neighborhood have seen it and it gets boring and they don't call anymore.
Are you able to rank between the three? So Google Ads, red letters, yellow letters, or whatever you call them, mailing letters, and then Facebook ads. Can you, if you were to rank 1, 2, and 3, which is the best bang for buck? Could you do that?
When Google Ads is done right and working well, it's by far the best. What I find is we've gotten our best deals off of Google Ads because that's people looking for you. It's people typing in, I want to sell my house fast in Windsor, right? If you send a letter to someone, they're like, oh, I wasn't thinking of selling, but I guess if you give me the right price. That's most of the reaction we get, right? So the difference is on the letters, it allows you to maybe do more houses where if you can't get enough volume, you can just send more, right? The problem I've had with Google Ads, one of the problems is there's only so many people searching these things that your ads are going to come up against. And it's easy to reach kind of you can increase your budget, you can double your budget, but you might only increase your responses 25%. So there reaches a point where you're just spending too much on it and you're not getting a response. So it works well with a smaller budget, let's say. And the other thing too is you have to be careful where you mail, because if it's an area that's super competitive with realtors, where realtors can spend a lot of your keywords will also be the same ones that realtors use. And then you're bidding against realtors. And I find like a lot of the stuff in the city of Toronto, because realtors make $50,000 commissions on these houses, right? I find a lot of stuff in the city of Toronto, it can be a little bit of a money pit for Google Ads, because you say sell my house fast, the realtors are the top ones bidding there. So then your cost per click goes up drastically to get those clicks and to get those views, and that just adds a lot to the cost.
Oh, this is great information, guys. I mean, if you're just beginning out in wholesaling, even if you're a wholesaler right now, this sort of stuff really streamlines your business. I love the fact that you said that Google AdWords really is, you're getting quality leads, maybe smaller and maybe more expensive, but it's quality leads because people are actually searching for you versus sending out letters, or even Facebook where you're putting out there, if you're interested, come to me, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you don't have a background, I would say the hardest to do well if you don't have. Like, Facebook's easy to just start an ad, but the hardest I would say to do well consistently is probably Facebook. And then,
why is that?
Sorry?
Why is that? Why do you say it's hardest?
It's really hard to target well on Facebook. You get a lot of hate. Keyboard warriors, there's a lot of hate from that. Whereas like on Google Ads, there's nowhere for them to comment or to hate on you or call you names. So I would say Facebook is, I'm not necessarily a techie person. I'm okay with a computer, but I'm not coding anything, that's for sure. I found Facebook to be a really tricky one. I have someone really smart on my team who's dealing with that, and he does a lot of tweaking. Google Ads can be really tricky. It's hard to figure out. When it works well, it works well. When it doesn't, it's a little tricky. Like your easiest are your bandit signs. Right? Go to a new neighborhood that's run down, put up a bunch of signs. They're called bandit signs for a reason. They're not allowed, right? You don't put your cell phone number on it because you're going to get in trouble. Put a forwarding number that can't be traced back to you. I'm not giving you advice to do anything that's not allowed, but watch your sign bylaws, let's say. That's the easiest. That's stick some signs in the lawn. That's going to be your easiest thing to do. But it's a little harder to scale. It takes time to do. But I think it is, like, for someone who wants to buy in a specific area, even if you just put up 10 signs, like, if you don't have to, you can just have the signs up there consistently. When they get taken down, put new ones. I'm not saying to buy at volume if you're not looking to do the volume we're doing, but if you buy a house in an area, put up a few signs in that area and market for more, because you never know when you get the right person. But also, bandit signs don't help if you don't answer your phone.
Yeah, no, yeah, of course, for sure. I mean, if you have a specific area that you want to target, that's probably the best way to go because you can get those eyes on that sign, right? Versus blasting it out to the universe on Google or whatever. I'm exaggerating, obviously, because you're targeting, even in Google and Facebook. It's probably, if you have a smaller area and you have a set budget, that's probably the way to go. Going back to Google, Facebook, anything social media or online, where do you learn? Like, where do you learn? Is this something that you guys do in-house, that you'll review the statistics, they'll go over it, with a fine-tuned comb? Or is it a company that does that for you, or you learned it somewhere else? What is the language that you got to use so people actually find you? How do you guys do that?
Yeah, so, I mean, I haven't been involved with this at all. I think recently, when I started off doing Google, it was me. There was Adwords Express, which is like the light or the easy version of Google AdWords. That's what I started with. Again, I don't know that I did it great, but it was easy to set up. I started putting out ads. I got calls. It worked. Now we're using the full AdWords. I basically hired someone as a part-time marketing person earlier on, and basically paid while they learned, like, from Google. They're a smart person, so from Google, from videos, all that stuff, how to do it, and then constantly tweaked it, because when you are doing a certain volume with Google, they will, I think there's like Google advisors, Google reps that will go through your stuff and help you with it. We actually are a little bit getting help from a third-party company right now. It's tough though, because there's some third-party companies out there that charge a lot. They charge a fee, and they charge like a monthly fee and a percentage of your ad spend. And you can spend thousands of dollars easily a month just on like someone managing your ads, and you don't even know that they're that good. I'm skeptical of anyone fully hands-off managing my ads, but it is time-consuming in-house for sure.
Yeah. I mean, listen, whoever said wholesaling is easy and is the best way to start into real estate investing doesn't know the full story, right? You might get a deal or two and make a couple of, thousands of dollars or whatever, and you think you're in.
Yeah, if you have more time than money, you can just go knock on doors, right? But there reaches a point that if you want to scale it, I mean, people talk about wholesaling as a way to start. I see it, wholesaling, to do it successfully, to build a business around it, you need to know what you're doing. You need to understand renovations. You need to understand what's going to scare people, right? You need to understand how to discount something. Whether you're. I was just talking to someone. There was a house on the market for a long time that we were looking at. If we're buying something close to this comp looks terrible. It's not priced much more. It's been on the market since October. Still hasn't sold. What's going on? Well, you got to understand that house has a wood foundation. Looks great upstairs, but it has a wood foundation. People don't like that. That's going to scare a lot of people away.
Yeah.
So understanding that if you get a call with someone with a wood foundation, it's very rare, mind you. That's going to change the value of your property substantially, and don't buy it for the same value as you would if it had a concrete foundation.
Yeah. No, for sure. And if you don't know that, that's going to hurt. Okay. In the interest of time, Luc, we got 10 more minutes before we have to call it a day. I'm sure we could spend another hour or two talking about this. I love talking about real estate, as you know, and this is a topic that interests me for sure. Let's get to a couple of questions that I had, or any advice that you might give. So somebody who's just starting out as a wholesaler, right? A newbie wholesaler, they've listened to you now, you've come on the show. What is the one myth that you can bust? What is the one piece of advice that you have to give a new wholesaler in order for them to continue and keep on going in this business without getting disheartened?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is essentially what you're saying. It's keep going in this business. There are people out there who want to sell their homes. You're going to hear it all the time, especially from realtors. Why would someone sell their home for less? People don't do that in Canada. Everybody sells through the MLS. I'm proof. I had those limiting beliefs when I started. But I'm proof that people do sell privately all the time. Just understand how you can help be a better option than the MLS. You're basically, in a way, offering a service. You're offering another option. So understand what you have to offer, because if you're just like anybody else buying off the MLS, they have no reason to sell to you. Understand what you can offer, and then understand that there are people who will value what you offer, and that it's 1 in 100 at most. So that you need to go talk to a lot of people to find the right person who has property distress and or seller distress. You need to find a combination of those two is going to be your best bet.
There you have it, guys. 1 in 100. That's what you should be hitting. And the thing is that you have to make 100 offers before you get that one in the first place. So you better get on the phone. You better knock those doors. You better hit those email lists or whatever you got to do to talk to 100 people so you can get that one deal. So if you're just starting off in wholesaling, don't be disheartened if you talk to 5 people and nobody wanted to sell their house to you. Okay, you got to put in the work. Otherwise, it's not happening. Okay, Luc, what about a wholesaler who's already in the business, who's been doing it for a couple of years? They do, I don't know, 5 wholesale deals a month, which is a lot if you ask me. But I can't get over that, right? I can't get over that plateau. So I've hit my plateau. I want to get to that next level, burst through the roof and get to where you are. What do I do?
Yeah, I mean, the big difference between the wholesaler doing 5, and even 5 is a lot. So really, a wholesaler doing 1 a month on their own is pretty good consistently, right? With the team, the big difference is just going to be if you want to build a team around you. I mean, that's really a question people should ask themselves too is, yeah, I want to do more, okay, but now I'm taking all of this extra risk and this extra cost. Do I want to do, if I can do a couple deals a month on my own and keep all of that, do I want to instead hire a lot of people, have these expenses to try to get and do more deals? But the biggest difference between doing a few deals a month and doing more, it's having great people that work with you. And you also have to realize some people are better than others at managing, inspiring, working with employees. That's one of the things my COO is great at. He's much. I think people who join my company understand that I have a lot of experience and a good, excellent reputation at doing this, and I know what I'm doing. But they also join because Corey on my team makes the environment a very pleasant place to work, that people want to work. So just because you know what you're doing doesn't mean you're going to be able to motivate an employee to do it as well. But if you want to do more, the biggest thing is going to be building a team, either partnering or hiring. That's going to be the only way to do more after a certain point.
No, I love it. I think this is for all entrepreneurs, right? If you have any kind of business experience, you understand the value of teams, having employees in order to scale up your business, doing what you do best and letting others do what they do best, because you can't do everything. I think when we start off in real estate investing, a lot of a myth that we have in our minds is that you can do everything yourself, right? And yes, you can up to a certain point, but after a certain point, are you just putting food on the table, or are you trying to live that lifestyle like Luc mentioned, that you have cell phone reception for once a week or once in 10 days, right? Is that the lifestyle you want to live? So do you take that money now and invest and grow your team to get to that next level, or just be where you are? So I think that's a really hard question, and something that every entrepreneur has to go through in their life cycle of their business to make that decision. Because for me, that's a make or break, absolutely make or break, right? And I think Luc's tip is the most important. If you want to grow your business, you have to think about your teams. Awesome, Luc. We got a few minutes left. I would love to hear the worst house you've ever bought or assigned. Give us the worst. Give us the real crap now.
Oh, the best house. I think the worst house we ever bought was in Ottawa, and we actually closed on it. It was, seller called us. They said, we want to sell this to you for land value. We said, land value? We've heard that before. It does. Usually we're like, nah, the house is more worthwhile at fixing it up. But it was in a popular neighborhood of Ottawa, and the seller wouldn't let us in the house. They wouldn't let my acquisition rep in the house. They basically said, make us an offer for land value. That's all we're going to sell it for. So we made an offer. Acquisition rep said, I know the price is lower than you were expecting, but I can't go in the house. I can't see what we're dealing with. I'm taking all the risk here. And yeah, so she said, here's my offer. I'm going to go for a walk around the neighborhood and give you guys time to think about it. And when she came back, they said, okay, we'll do it. And that situation, there was a few aspects to that. Some of the reasons we were able to do it. They hadn't paid property taxes in forever. They bought the house 20 years prior. They hadn't had running water in the house for 5 years while living there. And they hadn't been making their mortgage payments. So they had gotten a letter from the bank finally saying, from the sheriff saying, I am coming to your house in a week to evict you for non-payment. Now, family, 2 teenage kids, they didn't, they were living paycheck to paycheck. They didn't have the money to fix the house, and they didn't have the money to pay to live somewhere else in the meantime. They didn't have first and last month's rent. If the sheriff had come and kicked them out, they would have been on the street. And the way power of sale works here, if the bank sells it for more than sold, there was a good amount of equity, the bank would pay it back to the owner. But that would have been at least 6 months down the road, right? When the bank listed on the MLS, they would have also charged a whole bunch of legal fees and multiple appraisals, everything that they do. And then the seller would have gotten some of their equity back. But that would have been months later living on the street. So what we did was we said, okay, we'll close this in 3 business days with cash. That's why we didn't assign it, because we had to close so quickly. You can stay in the house for free for a month, and then you have to move out. But you're getting your money for the closing, except for a holdback, in 3 days, so that you have the money to go pay first and last or to buy another house. And 30 days in, they hadn't found another place. They were still looking. But after another 15 days, it took them about 45 days total to leave the house. They did. We went in the house. Hoarders, no running water for 5 years. What had happened was there's this back addition on the house that collapsed with a bathroom in it, and the roof collapsed in. And a plumbing pipe broke. So water was just gushing out into this back addition. And so the owners didn't know how to cap the plumbing lines, so they shut off the water to the house.
Oh, wow.
And for 5 years, they didn't have running water in their house with kids living there. They brought in jugs of water. But what happened is, where do you go to the bathroom? You can't flush the toilet. So they used the bathtub upstairs as a toilet. After a certain point, the drains started dripping into the kitchen. So they plugged the bathtub, and the bathtub filled up with urine and feces to the brim. And so they started using these empty water jugs to go to the bathroom. And so when we bought it, that collapsed addition, they were just throwing these water jugs full of urine into the back addition. So there was at least 300 of them in the back addition. And that was how we bought the house. Jugs of piss, a bathtub full of crap. The hoarding was like an excavation, because they were teenage kids. And as you got lower in the pile of things, you would go from teenage to childhood things to baby toys in the pile of stuff, because they just never threw
one
it
on top of the other.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
geez.
that was the worst house we ever bought. What ended up happening was we cleared it out. We listed it on the MLS for sale, and we sold it to a builder who tore down the house and is building 2. He was able to sever the lot in half and build 2 new houses.
Wow. And there you have it, guys. That's a win-win situation. I guess the family is better off, and they're happier.
They have running water.
Yeah.
And the kid, one of the kids was sleeping on a mattress pad on a pile of garbage, now has his own bedroom and his own bed.
Wow. That's amazing. That's amazing. There you go, guys. That's a win-win-win situation. Win for the seller in this case. Their lifestyle has just improved, obviously, because they were probably too embarrassed to address the situation right from the start, and then it got worse and worse and worse. Now they were pretty much airlifted and put into a new situation. Their life is better. Luc's made some money because he helped them, and he's given that property to somebody else who's also making some money. So all wholesalers are not bad. Luc, it's been awesome having you over here. I would love to have talked to you much, much more. We got to get you back. We got to talk about running your own business. I have this brain, this light red off my above my head over here. Not just about wholesaling, but running a company. I think that's something that we can talk about to our people much, much more. Thank you for coming. Thank you for your thoughts. Guys, if you are following on Facebook Live, if you've not addressed any of your questions, I'm going to ask Luc to actually go back and answer that if he can. Luc, That'll be great. Also, please put in your contact information so people get on your buyer's list. I should have asked you. I didn't ask you. Are you out in Windsor? I don't think you're out in Windsor yet.
I don't wholesale out in Windsor.
Okay. And is there any reason for that? Or
part of it is we have it's too far for our team to drive for our local stuff. We don't really go past Woodstock, Ingersoll, that direction. But also, there's a lot of people I respect, wholesaling out in your area and in London. And
got it.
Unless I'm going to go full out in that area, I'm not going to step on their toes.
Yeah, got it. Makes sense. Perfect. Awesome. But we would love to have you here when we actually have our physical meetings. It'll be great to have you down here physically and talk to our group again. Thank you so much for coming. Join us next week, guys. We're going to have a Windsor market update as we do at the end of the month. The following weeks, we're going to bring Marianne Gillespie, my coach, to talk about, to stop spending time thinking and actually doing. So that's something that you're gonna look forward to, and a whole host of experts in our Tuesday Talk series where we can pick their brains and get their opinions and their advice on real estate investing. Thank you so much for coming, Luc, again, and we catch you guys soon. Stay safe
Awesome.
and
Thanks so much
stay
for having
home.
me.